What's going on, everybody? If you can, please share the link. I appreciate it. Sorry for the delay here. I had set the class up on my computer, and then I was trying to be outside and stream from my phone, but for some reason, YouTube app on the phone would not show the scheduled class. So after trying twice, then I just came in the house and hooked the stuff up. I wanted to be outside today for what I wanted to talk about. And the other option was to just cancel this one and then just start the stream from my phone. But I was going to go through that. So we're going to do it through here. And so I need to transfer things from my phone. But you're good to go, though. But if you can, please share the link, and we'll be getting started momentarily. I have to. Okay, I also have to send this new link to the brothers and sisters in the community because they had the old link before I ended it. So if y'all just give me a few seconds here to quickly do this, we'll be on our way. And welcome. And if anybody got any question or comment or anything like that, definitely put it in the chat section. I'll have the chat section open. And I'll put it up on the screen here so I can see. Matter of fact, I'll put it on my iPad here. So let me just share it right quick to my main page. There we go. And then let me grab this link here and send it to my brothers and sisters here in the community, because some of them are trying to get into it through the link I shared earlier. And then we will get on our way. All right. So now that that's out the way, welcome, brothers and sisters. Hope everybody's day is going well. Just giving it a little time. Notification to go out. Blah, blah, blah. Today kind of be a follow-up of yesterday's class. Let me put up the chat section here. Why everything is coming up. Make sure I got what I need here on my screen. I appreciate y'all patience with me. I was trying to be outside. We could see a little nature while we were talking, but didn't work out today. All right. All right. Okay. Good to go, guys. Now, let me throw up the chat section here so I can talk to you guys as you say things, because sometimes the chat box that's connected to this streaming thing is like delayed, and I won't get your comments in real time. So let me just quickly throw up the stream on my iPad so I can see the chat section. And there we go. What's going on, Brother Thomas? Cool, man. Well, Lord's will, man. The shift goes well. And you don't mess yourself up. All right. Okay. All right, brothers and sisters. Well, welcome. Thank you guys for your patience. Pastor Jay, obviously, for those maybe this first time, maybe seen the title. For those who remember, I said anytime I did talk about anything related to Black Hebrew Israelites, it was not going to be in the fashion in which you guys may be accustomed to on other people's channels, where, we used to, well, some still continue, but I used to basically do the rabbit trail, chase these guys down the rabbit trail of this the passage, they use this is what they say, this is not what it means, and then the back and forth thing, and then every once in a while somebody want to debate and all that other stuff. And after a while of doing that, I got tired of the end result, which was, on best case scenario, the best you would get out of these things, these interactions, is great build, brother. We had a great build. You don't leave on one accord. You don't leave with anybody repenting and dropping to their knees and believing the gospel or something like that. It just ends with great build. It's not the purpose of the conversation. It's not so we can have a great build because somebody's lying and not telling the truth. So we would hope it ends with repentance. But after that whole thing, Lord turned me to start talking more about, I was already doing, but the focus primarily on and almost exclusively to the fact that people thought I'd, wouldn't deal with anything regarding the movement anymore. Focusing on the holy life that Christ calls us to live. The reason for that is because many people who are debating these guys, I got phone calls from people. They want to know, hey, how do you combat? What's the response? Blah, 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 blah. A lot of them are professing Christians, but a lot of them are pagan Christians. A lot of them are Christians that I wouldn't even fellowship with because of the evil lives and the things that they think are normal that are actually evil and that they openly do. But they spend all their time, and you see them in the comment sections of these other channels, arguing back and forth about how wrong Black Hebrew Israelites are and things like that. And quite frankly, if they don't change up the way that they live, they'll also end up where the Black Hebrew Israelites that follow that false doctrine will end up. And so the more important thing was the holy life and what that meant. Not just saying you got to, live a holy life. And everybody just walk around saying, yes, live a holy life. But what is it? What is required of it? What's the rules? What's the commandments? Focus on those things so that by these things, the people can grow in the light and knowledge of Christ and by that become firmly planted in the faith, so where they will not be deceived by any false sect because they'll be planted in the truth. And so anytime I do talk about any topic, like yesterday when we went over the curses, it is always to be through the lens of Christ and the real reason why these things were written. We know that they're historical accounts of stuff just like Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, and Rebecca, Sarah, and Hagar. We know there's a historical thing that took place, but it's not the historical account. It's not why it was written. All right. It wasn't just so we can know what happened historically. It was written for your learning today in your current generation, meaning there's supposed to be a present lesson that helps instruct you in righteousness regarding what you're reading. And for that reason, there doesn't have to be a great focus on historic sense and 532 BC, and this was the time frame, and this rock and that building, and we got this archaeological proof. It, though there are those elements, that ain't the reason why God had it written. That ain't the focus of why God had it written. And it's written for your learning that through patience and comfort of Scripture, you might have hope regarding the future, not and regarding salvation in Christ and all these other promises that God has. And so he has these things that he's done in the past written down so you can learn of his character, his ways, and realize and draw from these accounts of God's faithfulness and how whether you were in debt slavery like Jacob was, working for 14 years for the woman that he wanted, or whether you were stolen and sold into slavery like Joseph was, and the character in which he had and how God's favor was upon him and all that happened there. Whether you were in bondage for a very long time like the children of Israel was in the land of Egypt, which symbolizes the longest slavery that's ever taken place, not historically speaking, but in terms of spiritually speaking, for that was written down to let us have insight in regards to the true and most longest slavery that's ever been under the face of the earth, which was not the children of Israel's slavery in Egypt, but mankind's slavery to sin and the serpent that took place in the garden. All right, that true Pharaoh, king of Egypt, or the house of bondage leader, or whatever the case is, the serpent and his in the Egyptian army, the angelic forces, fallen angels, and then the people of Egypt, the regular laymen, right? Talking about the regular humans, all right, that are part of that bondage or that land, who enjoy it there. They're citizens of this house of bondage. And so the Lord had these things written there, not just so people can know there was a historical aspect to this, and then argue about who understands the historical thing the most accurately, who got this source, who got that source. It wasn't that year, it was this year because of that time and that writing. And when you look at the Egyptian thing sources and they dated around it, all that puffs people up and make them feel smart. The reason for that, why God had these things written, is so that you can learn God's character, the righteous way to go, the way not to go, and the type of judgments that God would bring on to show his hatred towards evil and towards evildoers, and to show his mercy upon those that are his people, and his hatred upon those that are not his people. You know, this is the reason for these things, all right? And so, and we're not just talking about, you know, and obviously that's outside of the prophecies and things like that. But it's the same thing I want to talk to you guys about today. We read a couple passages, but I want to talk to you, brothers and sisters, and that's the reason why I wanted to be outside, because I can point. But maybe next time. A lot of people who have gotten deceived and persuaded, whether they was on the side of the street or some of these people bust up inside the churches, or they on YouTube and come across an obscured video and they watch it and then they're convinced. However someone becomes, you know, deceived, who grew up in church. All right, and I'm kind of specifically pointing out those who grew up in church, in a church, all right, because the people who were like in Islam or something like that, they had no foundation of truth to begin with. So they're just whatever appeases their senses, they kind of just go that way. But those who grew up in the churches, it shouldn't have been like that. Because to have grown up in the church was to mean, even though it's not reality, but it was to mean that you were learning the doctrine of the apostles, the truth concerning Christ, and that you, since you profess to be a Christian, that means that you actually believe, which would mean that you were redeemed from the curse of the law and free from every kind of sin, and therefore you don't live by the flesh, you live by the Spirit, and you're growing in light and knowledge of Christ, and you're keeping his commandments and living upright. And therefore, since wisdom is in your heart, it would guard your paths and keep you from false teachers and those whose words are perverse, as Proverbs said. But clearly something wrong. The people who grew up in the church don't have this wisdom because they don't fear God. They don't really believe on Christ. And then they get deceived into falsehoods because they're a ship tossed everywhere, right? And so I would normally get calls and emails about, you know, what rebuttal can I give, right? And when we talk about rebuttals, we talk about, you know, at this point, it's a battle of intellect. It's a battle of intellect at that point. Battle of knowledge, right? I know the truth, you don't. This is what you say, and therefore, this is my rebuttal to that. 9 times out of 10, it would never convince the one teaching that false doctrine. It may convince the ones who's listening, but 9 times out of 10, and I only say 9 times because there's a small chance that the person will later be convinced, but it's not common. 9 times out of 10, debates don't end with the two people agreeing and going holding hands and being on the same side. It either leads in a worse argument, worse animosity, or they just say good build, but they remain on separate sides. They don't become one-minded, right? So the key of not being deceived is not knowing all the ins and outs of their breakdowns or understanding everything that they teach. All right, you got to learn everything Christ taught and do it. You don't got enough time in your life. You don't got enough brain capacity to not only learn everything Christ taught, because I promise you, the people who got caught up in this movement did not know everything that Christ taught, and they didn't live it. And the people that are so heavily invested in this movement that ain't even part of it, they're like binge watching it. People debate them because they're like, hey, my cousin got stuck in my spouse or somebody. The people who are so caught up in that, and you see them always in the chat sections when it comes to dealing with these guys. The people who are so heavily invested in that, they don't know everything Christ taught. And they don't do it. All right? And so you don't have enough time in the day. You don't have enough brain capacity to know the ins and outs of what these guys taught, so you can have a rebuttal or the best rebuttal ever to possibly convince somebody, and what Christ taught, and then do it. Because if you did it the way God wants you to do, this is what God requires of everybody that professes him. All right. He requires that you saturate yourself in every detail of your life with his commandments. That's the first thing. When it comes down to eat, when it comes down to how you dress, your job, how you dealing with the people there, your home, husbands with wives, wives with husbands, children, being keepers at home. You got a busy schedule already just serving God. The sacrifices and how, joining together, the worship of God, the preachers, knowing the truth so they could teach the people and build them up and equip them to every good work. All these things. And the Lord wants you to talk about his commandments when you rise up, when you lie down, when you're along the way. Bind them on your foreheads. The Lord talks about how he wants you to deal with his commandments, right? And we already know the Lord didn't want you venturing off into these falsehoods, all right, because it also written in the law when the Lord was talking to the children of Israel. He said he didn't even want them to inquire about the gods of the nations. Not in a historical sense and not in any sense. He said, don't let their names come out of your mouth. Don't even inquire of them. When you go into the land, he didn't say, gaze upon the statues and, do some research and find out when did they make this statue and what year was it? And, what is the story behind them, this creature you're looking at and the statue? Dive into this. What about the ways in which they worship it? Learn of those. Adopt the ones you think ain't that bad and dedicate it to me. That's not what he said. He said when you go in the land, you see these things, burn it up, tear it down, don't covet the gold, don't bring it to your house, don't take it as a possession, or else you will be set aside for destruction just as it is. Concerning the name of these guys, don't let them come out of your mouth. Right? Don't call upon them, don't serve them, don't worship them. When you see what the heathens are doing to these things, don't you copy them. Do not worship the Lord your God the way they worship their gods. Right? So he didn't want an Israelite inquiring of the heathen going, hey, man, tell me the mythology behind your false god. And then they tell him the story of Thor. And then you be like, wow. And then later on, they make a movie series out of it. And then you go to the theater to watch it even more. Oh, wow, this is awesome. Like people do today. The Lord didn't want that. Why? Because he said, lest it become a snare to you. Lest it become a snare to you, a trap. And many people are trapped by these things today. All right. And so the Lord wants you to saturate yourself with his commandments and his ways and not the ways of falsehoods. He don't want you to inquire of the ways of falsehoods. It just so happened we grew up as Gentiles, and a lot of us come from these falsehoods. That's why we got knowledge of it. But the falsehoods we didn't come from, these guys we never knew, we shouldn't inquire of them. We don't have to study them. We don't need to buy a book. When somebody come around talking about some new pantheonist god or goddess, I don't got to go to the library and study up on this and find out what this dumb falsehood comes from. You should already know it ain't Yahweh, ain't the one true God. As soon as somebody said goddess, so you don't even need to read on it. You don't even need to read on it. As soon as they say one of the elder gods, you don't need to go do some deep research about elder gods. There is no elder gods. There's no council of gods in the cloud somewhere or in the unseen realm. There's only one God. All right? So you don't have to inquire of these things. You don't know the ins and outs of these little false sects and mythological falsehoods in the world and these myths. You're to concern yourself with the commandments of the Lord because that's what's going to keep you safe. Walking by faith, keeping his commandments, wisdom will keep you safe. Wisdom isn't, guys, and a lot of people get this, mixed up here. People think wisdom is knowing a bunch of information, so they go buy a bunch of books. And I know these guys that got all them books in the background. I know they ain't read all them books, bro. There ain't no way they read all them books. You don't got enough time in the day and to be a minister to read all those books and understand everything and dissect the Bible. There's just no way when you're like 30-something years old and a preacher. Okay? There's no way you read all them books, man, and understand them. There's just no way. And you got to be highlighting, buying the book for a section or something. There's just no way. And we know it's impossible because every person I've ever seen that got huge libraries and got the Bible, I haven't seen one just preach pure doctrine yet. They all veer off. They all go into black this, white that. They all go into everything else except what the apostles talked about. Yeah, they might know some historical stuff, and they get y'all on that. Their Bible lessons always historical stuff. Yeah, about 539 BC. And you feel real smart. You're like, wow, I'm getting the history behind things. And then you leave, and you ain't got no commandment. You ain't got no way in which the Lord wants you to live. You ain't got no emphasis on preparing your mind to suffer or anything like that conforms you to the image of Christ. All you got was some background information on the text of the Bible. That's all you got. And so the people leave services really unfed. They think they were fed because the Bible's open and somebody went over some history with them, but they wasn't really fed because as soon as they leave, guess where they going? Or they going to their brother's house who got the big 72-inch TV because they about to watch SummerSlam WWE or the Mayweather fight. Or they about to watch a bunch of grown men act like little kids throwing temper tantrums, taunting one another as they bang each other's bodies apart over pin-skin balls, and then they try to run so we can run the fastest to get a point. They're doing things like that. And they think there's nothing wrong with it because they've accepted the aseptic social patterns. And their preachers are too busy studying other stuff instead of dissecting in the law of God and teaching people righteousness in detail. Not just telling them to live righteous, and then everybody goes by their own mind what they think righteousness is, but actually tell them what it is. Because God told you what it is. Tell them what's required. Tell them what to keep them safe. It's not enough to just tell people, Jesus will keep you safe. Okay, yes, he keep you safe. That's a true statement. But just to say Jesus will keep you safe, but don't emphasize the keeping of his commandments, which proves that you are loyal and faithful to him, and that this he will keep you safe promise was to those that are faithful, not to those who ain't faithful, but just say God will keep them safe. So the people go around saying the faith, they go around quoting the promises, but they don't live the way in which those and who the promise is for is supposed to live. For example, forgiveness, right? Everybody talk about forgiveness. God will forgive me. He'll forgive me. They'll tell the unbelievers who stiff-necked, the Lord forgive them, right? But when it comes to the mercy of God, what did the scripture say? The mercy of God is not apart from a person becoming contrite in heart and turning away from his sins. So it's not enough to just say, the Lord have mercy, he's merciful, or he will protect you, or he's your, like the psalm says, he's my, it talks about the Lord being a, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically your fortress, shelter, right? But who? The scripture told you who was the ones and who he protect like that. Those that are faithful, that trust him. Like the Lord requires something of you. He's not just giving out free stuff all day long. Even this grace that we didn't deserve didn't come by way of just, it was free to us because we didn't deserve it or work for it. But somebody did on our behalf. It costs something. It costs a man's life, innocent life. And even when the Lord poured out his mercy on us, it didn't come without a requirement on the other end, which is how you should live as a result of that. And so he wants us to saturate our minds and lives with that, not with all this other stuff people concern themselves with. And so you get people who grew up in the church, white or black. All right. And right now I'm gonna talk about white right quick, because it's part of the reason why I want to be outside. So whether you white, any other group that wouldn't fit into the Black Hebrew Israelite spectrum, all right, or if you some other group that maybe the Nation of Islam would say is like the devil or something like that, because all these nationalist type mindset groups, the devil's always like another human being. He's either the white man. Most of the time it's just the white man. All right. And then maybe some other human. All right. That's the devil. And it's never them. They're never the devil. It's always somebody else that's the devil. And then they point at what those particular people did to show they're the devil. Right. They won't point at the things they did. All right. And they won't emphasize the things that happened to them. They don't emphasize why it happened to them. They act like they were innocent lambs or something, and the devil came and did something to them. That's the way you let these guys explain and talk. That's how they sound. That's what they're saying. But if the evil actions they point out regarding someone else, like, those of the white race that did evils in the past, if they did the same thing, the camera's acting crazy. Hold on. Wait a minute. All right. If they did the same things regarding those that are among that are their own people, then they'll realize that them and the white man, racist wise, are the same. So if the white man's the devil, the black man's the devil. Asian man's the devil, everybody the devil. Because there's no acts that has been done by one group that has not been done by another group. All right? And when it comes to history, you can't get bogged up about historical sources, because everything that's happened under the sun, thank you, son. Everything that's happened under the sun is not recorded. Everything that's happened under the sun is not recorded, guys. All right. I know people make a big deal about sources and they feel like they know all historical truth because they got books and sources and stuff. But everything that's happened under the sun is not written. Even the Bible tell you that. Okay. So just because you can't find a book about a certain people doing a certain act, it doesn't mean they didn't do it. All right. And so the point is that there are some that grew up in the church, for example, that are white. And they run into these guys and they tell them you're the devil. There's no salvation for you. God hates you. They run off a couple of passages that says, God hates the nations. They're nothing. They're spittle, blah, 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 blah. And then these people's faith are wrecked. Now, the only reason why their faith is wrecked by hearing these words from these guys is because they weren't firmly planted in the faith that they said they had. Right? They weren't firmly planted in it. That's the only reason they was destroyed so easily and upset. Their faith upset so fast, so quickly, and so easily. All right? Because they weren't truly planted in the faith they said they had. Had they been truly planted in the faith, meaning had they truly known Christ, right? And had they been keeping his commandments and living and walking after his image, then they wouldn't have been so easily disrupted in their faith, and their faith wouldn't have been destroyed. As a result, some people have left the church, some committed suicide, some have got on their feet and start kissing the feet of these guys because they've been convinced that they must go to these guys. And even though these guys are saying there's no salvation for them, the people are so scared at, this pending doom that they've been told is coming upon them and that there's nothing they can do about it. They're getting on their feet and kissing these people's feet is an act of pleading for mercy. All right? Pleading for mercy. And so, the guys who's getting their feet licked, they get a kick out of it. The God who made these guys who's getting their feet licked, is very angry. And if they don't repent, he's going to destroy them. And so when it comes to information, as has been proven in the garden, you can be deceived by information. That's what the devil used, information, right? If we look at Genesis right quick, when the fall took place, look at what he told Eve and spot out the lie and spot out the truth he told him. All right, hold on. Remember the commandment that the Lord gave them. Don't eat of that, midst of that tree, for the day you eat of it, you shall surely die, right? He didn't tell Adam, he didn't tell Eve, the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you should be as God. He didn't say that. He told them, don't eat it, for the day you eat of it, you should surely die. They were to keep his commandment. That's it. All right? And so, yet when the serpent comes, he tells the woman, you won't die. Verse 4. The serpent replied to the woman, God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it. Now, is he lying about that? Is that a lie? No, because the Lord even says that later on. So that wasn't a lie. Yet he's using the truth deceitfully. This is what sin does. This is what the apostle said. Sin uses the good and just commandments, meaning it uses the truth and by it deceive you and slay you. So he tells them the truth. God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it. And you will be like God. That wasn't a lie either. Knowing both good and evil. Nothing he said here was a lie. Yet we talking about the serpent here. Nothing he said was a lie. Yet he used the truth deceitfully to convince this woman to do what God told them not to do. So we know what happened. She ate the fruit. She brought it to her husband. He ate the fruit. Now, after they ate it, what did the Lord say? Let's go on down. Verse 22. The Lord God said, look, the human beings have become like us, knowing both good and evil. Now, wait a minute now. The serpent said, God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil. And the Lord God said, look, the human beings have become like us, knowing both good and evil. What if they reach out and take the fruit from the tree of life and eat it? They then will live forever. You be in a situation like the serpent and the fallen angels, in a wicked state and can't be redeemed from it. Not can't be, but you just won't be. There's nothing God can't do, but there are things he won't do. So the serpent used the truth, which is knowledge, which is information, and by it deceived the woman, and then she took it and deceived her husband, and they ate it. And so there are those who, once again, that, of the Caucasian race, who faith is upset. They grew up in the church. They grew up, Jesus love, he loves everybody type of thing. And they grew up with those things. Those that believe on him shall be saved, no matter what nation you come from, et cetera, et cetera. And even some blacks, right? But then they meet these guys who say, no. Now, black, yeah, there's salvation for you, but you got to believe you're this. And you got to come back to the knowledge of a nationality and things like that. And for the ones that are white, well, there's nothing for you because you're Esau and blah, blah. And I know all the sects don't do the whole white man Esau thing, all right? Some of them say the Arabs is Esau and stuff like that. The point is, whoever Esau is, all right, for the majority of them, there's nothing that can be done with them because of what, like Obadiah and things, different things they would use, all right? And so the people who are on those receiving ends of no mercy, become very desperate, and they start doing things out of being desperate because you're telling them that there's no eternal salvation for them. It's just pending doom. And so they get afraid inwardly, and their faith get disrupted that they thought they had, and now they're calling people like me. What should I do? My faith is, I don't know what to do. I'm a white person. I got a black husband. I'm not supposed to be with him. And all this stuff is happening. What in the world's wrong? What happened to them? How are they so easily begotten like that or beguiled like that? And it's because they didn't truly know the God that they professed. We could point the finger and say, well, it's the lies of the Black Hebrew Israelites. We could say it was the serpents, fault regarding the fall and things like that. But if you look at the fall, who was punished? Every person was punished for their own sins, not for the sins of the other person. The serpent wasn't punished for the woman's sin or the man's sin. The man wasn't punished for the woman's sin, and the woman wasn't punished for the serpent's sin. The serpent was punished for his own sin. The woman was punished for her own sin, and the man was punished for his own sin. All right? If any false religious group destroys your faith and you're destroyed by God, it's only because of your own sins, not theirs. So if anybody's destroyed and led and beguiled and tricked and deceived, it's because of their own sins. They weren't planted. If they were planted and knew God, they wouldn't be deceived. And the Lord didn't just put the truth concerning him in the pages of a book only. If everything around you that you can see didn't declare the glory of God, and you couldn't see his works, but you only could know of them if you had a written book in your hand, all right, that anybody can come and tell you about and just use it and teach you about just a random God, as people do. They use the Bible to preach another Jesus. But the true God that made everybody didn't just exclusively put the knowledge of him inside the Bible only. The Bible itself writes and testifies of God's attributes and things that can be observed outside the Bible pages. Like when Christ said, if anybody want to say God ain't merciful upon y'all, he hate y'all, okay? If that's true, then I can see this in reality too. That he don't care nothing about anybody else. He only cares about those that are his people. There is a difference between those that are God's children and those that are not his children. There's a clear difference when we talk about covenantally and all that kind of stuff. But to tell somebody who's even not his child covenantally, at least yet, because you don't know who all he's calling. But to say he hates him and cares nothing about him, well, the Lord himself testifies that's a lie. How does he testify it? Well, Christ himself said, when he taught us how to love our enemies. You think Christ told us to love our enemies and God don't love his? Christ taught us that we may imitate our Father. So just as we to love our enemies, God loved his enemies too. How does he love them? How did Christ tell us to love our enemies? That's to emulate our Father. So what did he say? If your enemy's hungry, feed him. All right, that's imitating God. Them heathens over there, guess what? They just came back from plucking grapes out of their vineyard, picking fruit. They got potatoes and corn that grew up in the harvest time. Who gave them that? Who gave them the seeds? Who gave them the knowledge to plant? Who sent the rain that the crops may grow? Who did that? Yahweh did, the one true God that exists. He did that. So, but wait, they don't give honor to him when they pluck it. They don't go, thank you, Yahweh, I worship you and I keep your commandments. They don't do that. Instead, they go and bow down before statues and pray to Buddha or something. Call on Apollo, Hercules, and Thor. That's what they do. They don't give honor to him. Yeah, that's what makes them their enemies. Yet, despite that, because they're hungry, he shows mercy and care for them and feed them, give them clothes, give them shelter. When he sends a tornado, guess what? He don't destroy all the wicked doers. Some survive. He has mercy on some. Because David said something in the Psalm 145. He said in verse, quick second here. Verse 9, he said, I start verse 8. The Lord is merciful and compassionate, slow to get angry and filled with unfailing love. The Lord is good to everyone. He shows compassion on all his creation. So if you knew this characteristic of God and believed it and observed it, because he's made it to where no one can deny it. It's the truth. It's reality. Not just the figment of somebody's imagination and how they think of scriptures or how they want to interpret something. All right? How they want to use information. The Lord, by his acts, shows it every day. Christ said, for your Father rains down, showers his rain on the good and the evil, and the sun to rise on the thankful and the unthankful. And therefore, by imitating God, who does these things, we are being perfect. So if somebody comes along who say they're a messenger of God and they want to tell you something and say, man, listen here. I know you say you believe on Christ and Jesus and everything, but he ain't for you because you're this and you're that. And God don't care nothing about y'all. You'll be able to hear what they said, and they're going one ear out the other. Like, and you'll be able to see me with that. Here's God right here. Here's his works. Now you telling me something that he don't even do. For a person who don't care at all, what does he do? This is what I wouldn't do if I hated a person, because the law teaches us what it means to hate a person. All right? If I hated my neighbor and he was hungry and I held my bread back from him when I could help him, that says I hate him. If he got beat up on the side of the street and I look at him and I see the pain he in, or his life is in danger, or whatever the case is, he's there bloody, he done got beat up, and I see him and I don't go and have compassion on him, like the parable of the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, then that shows I hate him. And et cetera, et cetera. So we know what it means to hate one another. And the law teaches us what it means to love one another. This is what I would not do if I hated a person. I would not give them anything when they ask of me. If they was hungry, bone skeleton showing, about to drop dead if they don't get a slice of bread right now, and I got a cabinet full of it, 5 loaves, I wouldn't give them one slice because I hate him. It's my enemy. If he was thirsty, we're in the middle of the desert, I wouldn't give him water. I'll drink the water myself and preserve myself and let him die if I hated him. If I had the power to form his children, I'll give all his kids diseases. Matter of fact, why would I take the time to form his kids at all? I'll make them all barren if I hated them. I wouldn't take 9 months to carefully form the child and give it a soul and give it reasoning and give it the use of limbs and to make it healthy and give them when the baby come out, they get all happy. So I'm giving them a time of joy in life. Give them talents. And then when he come out the womb, I take care of him that he may grow to however tall he's going to be. Maybe Goliath height, 8'9". Make him strong, develop the muscles sustain his natural breath. Let him see year after year. I wouldn't waste my time doing any of that to think to people I hated and care nothing about. Nothing at all. God hates evildoers, and he hates wickedness, and he will destroy them. But to tell the people, even the wicked doers, that God cares nothing about them is a lie. Because he's already demonstrated, even though they won't acknowledge it because they hate him, though they won't acknowledge it, the Lord has already shown how compassionate he is, even upon the wicked doers. So if you knew this about the Lord and could see his works, then when these people come with these crazy doctrines, then you won't be deceived by it. When they come and say, well, black people can't marry white people. If that was true, then let's go back and look at the first marriage. What was the emphasis of the first marriage? Was it the skin tone? No. You don't know how dark Adam was or how light Eve was. No one was there but them. You know it's made from the dust of the ground. But have you seen the ground? Adam's very name is ruddy, the red clay of the earth. So we know he wasn't pitch black. If you want to get into the whole name stuff. But irregardless, when God presented the woman that was a helpmeet for him, what did Adam say? She's bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Meaning she came from me. She shall be called woman, for out of man she was taken. So the Lord, the emphasis of the first marriage was not nationality because they had none. It was not genealogy because they were simply sons and daughters of God. They had no mother and no father. They had no lineage line they descended from, all right, of the flesh. It was a man gender and a woman gender, and God put them together so they could procreate because he blessed mankind and said, be fruitful and multiply. And that blessing went, whether you white, black, Asian, Chinese, whatever, because God gave every woman the womb and every man the rod and the seed. So when it comes to marriage, it is not about the nationality or lineage or skin tone. The first marriage is this, and this is why, and we talked about this a couple of classes ago, is that the first marriage emphasis was not nationality. There was none. It wasn't genealogy. They had no ancestors. But what they were both upright, both served the one true God, and served him only. And that's why the law always forbid the sons of God from marrying the daughters of men, or the daughters of God from marrying the sons of men, right? Meaning the heathens. That's why the law said that. That's why God said that in Deuteronomy 7. Don't intermarry with them, for they shall turn your heart away from the Lord. That's what it's always been about. It was never about, oh my God, look, these are heathens. What made them heathens? They weren't heathens in the beginning. What made men heathens? What made men pagans? When we say heathens and pagans, what does that even mean? There's no such nationality as heathen or nationality as pagan. Those are terms to define how people act and live. They're heathens, they're pagans. That's not a nationality. All right? So what made them heathens or made them pagans to where the Lord said don't intermarry with them? What made them that way is, in the beginning, God made men upright, but men fell into sin, and they went off into idolatry. But then God had mercy on some and then had mercy on others. And he called Abraham, and he called Isaac, and he called Jacob, and he called the 12 tribes, and then later on, Christ comes along, and then he calls men out of every nation. But he doesn't call all men out of all nations. So you have a remnant among all nations that the Lord calls that are sons and daughters of God because they've been born again. But then there are majority of people still within out of all the nations that God did not call. They're heathens. They're still pagans. And so it's unlawful for God's people to intermarry with them, for they shall turn your heart away from the Lord. That's what it's always been about. As long as the two are upright, serve God and him only, then there's no prohibition in the law that forbid anyone from marrying, because that's how God instituted marriage in the beginning. So if we knew this, and then we, observe this and we see the blessing God blessed on men, we see these things with our eyes, but men come along like the serpent did. Even though Adam and Eve heard that even though Adam got the direct commandment from God and Eve got the commandment from her husband, even in their uprightness, because they were just made and never sinned, yet the evil one comes. Men come with information, some truths mixed with lies, using the truth deceitfully, and then deceive a person. But the only reason the person was deceived is because they weren't firmly planted as they should have been. So that means that people need to be focusing their minds on being firmly planted. Firmly planted. Yeah, these false sects might not trick you with, you're an Israelite and you got to be Israelite to be saved. They might not get you with that. They may get you something else. And it might not be them. It might be the Nation of Islam come around, do something. It might be the British Israelism come around and do something. It might be a false Christian preacher come around and do something, using the grace of God as a license to sin. That's why you got so many people up in the LGBTQ churches. Whatever the deception is, a person is only deceived because they're naive. Naive. And not planted in the truth. And that's why the apostle said, grow in the light and knowledge of Christ. Be wise and not foolish. Keep his commandments, so that by this you be no more tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. And the Lord was kind enough to set it up that besides the prophecies that talk about foretelling future events, everything else was written after it happened. Everything else was written after it happened. The New Testament letters were written after the fact. The Old Testament, Moses talking about what happened in the beginning and writing about what happened in the wilderness, those things were written after the fact. They weren't written in real time. That means these things were observable and took place in reality, and then somebody wrote it down after the fact. So the Lord set it up to where he does his works. In reality, it can be observed, can't be denied. And then later on, he has a scribe come and write about what took place, so that it's verifiable through observation, so that it was, I'll word it that way, so that it was observable through observation by the current generation that experienced it, and then written down for the learning and admonishment of those in the future generations. Not so they can imagine themselves being back then. That ain't the purpose of imagining yourself being back then. The purpose is that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. The mercy he had on the children of Israel in slavery was just a foreshadow of what he was going to do through Christ. He did the same act again, but greater. What he did to Nebuchadnezzar by taking the senses, and we read about what happened to him, it's because the Lord take other people's senses. When the Lord sent slavery upon the children of Israel because they broke his laws in the land, it ain't so you can imagine being them and you're them. It's because those who refuse to obey the Lord, he do the same acts. That's why you got slavery done took place in all the nations. People moved out of their lands, dispersed. They don't know who they is, nationality-wise. A lot of these people, when they went into slavery-wise, their names changed. Even in the Bible, it talks about names changing. As far as like the nations, what they're called. One group in, another group out. It's the same thing the apostle said in Acts when he said, the Lord has determined the times appointed and the rise and fall of each kingdom. He give men some land, and when their time is up, he move them out of the land and give it to somebody else. Many people have lived in Mount Seir. Many people have lived in the land of Canaan. The Lord is the same today, yesterday, and forever. It's so that we can learn of his acts, so that in our current generation, we can look out for him. So we can look out for him. God got angry because of sin. He sent pestilence and disease. It ain't for you to see, oh, that happens historically in Israel around 600,000 BC. No, so you keep your eyes open because the Lord's still angry at sin. And he still sends pestilence in the world. And when it happens, you can know it was him. And so you can know why he sent it, so you can examine yourself and not make him angry. That's the point of that. It's the point of this. That's why the scripture said all scripture is profitable for doctrine. Not doctrine of the past, but doctrine for now. For reproof. To correct you about now. Using the things that God did to correct people in the past. For instruction in righteousness. How you should live now, your current generation. That's all your life should be concerned about. I don't even know why we got a bunch of books around here in the world. I don't even know what's the point of them. Shouldn't everybody just want the knowledge of God? Is that what people want? Well, you got him out here doing his work. You can observe it. And he gave his word. So what do we need the other stuff for? What do we need it for? Yeah, I get it. The Bible don't talk about every historical thing under the sun, and you can use other historical stuff. For what? To prove other historical stuff? None of it will teach you anything of instruction of righteousness, though. Which is the whole point. The whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. Not to become scholars. Scholars of history. Depending on which way you go. Which way of academia you lean. Depending on what college you went to. And what their curriculum was and what they decided to teach you. That wasn't a prerequisite. And that ain't what's required. I may be ignorant of history stuff and not knew what happened during the Dark Ages. So what? I didn't live during the Dark Ages. I live now. And the guy who made me that I may serve him and fear him, keep his commandments. So I should consume myself with the knowledge of learning about him and learning of his works of old, that he's already given me enough to learn about it. All right? He already gave me enough. So, for example, I know that one of the curses and judgments of God that he would do upon those that hate him is to lead them off into captivity. Now, I know that. Now, what's the point? What's the point for you? Do I now need to trace every historical slavery that's ever happened? No. Do I need to know every historical slavery that's happened and all the ins and outs and the evil thing that the person did to that person and that person and that person? Do I need to know all of that? No. Why? Because it ain't no different than the count that the Lord already gave. One person's heart is moved to take another people. That people was taken because of their sins. The other person is being used by God to inflict punishment and oppression upon the evildoers that he's punishing. Then later on, the Lord is going to come back and judge the ones who oppressed them, because oppressing other people is evil. He stirred up their hearts in the evil corruptness that they're in to then inflict punishment on the evildoer. And then he comes back and punishes them, just like he did that man that kicked rocks and cursed David. The Lord moved that man to do it, just as David said. The Lord moved this man to curse me. Let him curse me. And David went on his way, even though his armor bearer wanted to cut the man's head off, because what the dude was doing was sin. It was evil to curse the king. Yet David said, don't kill him. The Lord moved him to curse me, let him curse me. Perhaps the Lord will have mercy on me this concerning this day. Then the man comes along years down the road and apologizes to David and pleads with him about that day when he cursed him. David made an oath with the man and said, I won't kill you. But then David got old and about to die. And he spoke to Solomon. And he said, remember that man that cursed me that day? What he did was a great evil to the king. Use wisdom. You know what to do with him. Do not let him go down to the grave to his ancestors in peace. You should kill him with a sword. Because the Lord is impartial. He will judge every evildoer according to their evils. Every evildoer according to their evils. So whether you were on the receiving end of a slavery because of your sins, the Lord was judging you. And the ones who was inflicting the oppression, though they were used by the Lord, it was evil in what they were doing. It wasn't evil on God's behalf for using them, but for the humans doing it, it was evil. Because they're smashing people against rocks, they're stealing their kids, they're stealing the people. It's evil stuff. Raping, that's the evil. It's of the evil one. And even though they were used by God to fulfill God's decree to punish the evildoers on the other end that got taken, he's going to come back and judge those individuals. So the ones that got judged can't focus so much on, oh, this is what they did to us. This is what they did to my people. This is what they did to us. As if they were some angels on the earth. The only reason it happened to you, ancestors, is because y'all was wicked. It's because you were wicked. That's why it happened. For every nation that's ever been in slavery. The British that were taken into slavery, that were ransacked by the Northeast Africans, the only reason the Lord allowed that is because y'all was wicked. Y'all were wicked. Wicked evildoers. The only people under the sun that ever go through some calamity like this but are not wicked are the righteous ones that are under Christ. And for them, it's not to destroy them as those that under the law was, as we talked about yesterday. It was to purify them. So go back and watch that class, and you need to learn about that. But the point is that the Lord is the same today, yesterday, and never. And the point I'm trying to make to you guys, I know I got a lot of, it's a lot of people, a lot of apologists and stuff like that. All they do is online keep sharing these photos of new books they buy. Oh, I'm about to read this. Look at this collection. And, all this kind of stuff that they do. And it always annoys me. And I got to hurry up, go around it. Not because, hey, look, they're buying books and, hey. It's because every single one that do that, every last one of them promote idols. They promote vainglory, striving, competition. They promote things that God hates. So I'm like, what is all these buying books doing for them? Theology 101, or how to know God. And their actions show they don't know him really. They know of him because they profess faith in Christ and everything. But in their actions, they're showing they don't really know him. Maybe that's why they're getting all these external books. That's why they're getting all these books. They're trying to find a way to know him anyway. When the Lord has made a sure way to know him, fear him and keep his commandments. Be careful how you live. Dissect your entire life into his law and look intently at his righteous decrees, for that will make you wise. You want to be wise? You don't need to go to college. Yeah, worldly wisdom, go to college. But wisdom that comes from God, you don't need to go to college. You don't need to go to theology school. It's not required. You want to be truly wise? The Lord said, keep my commandments and do them, for that will be your wisdom and intelligence before the nations. Everybody's so concerned about everybody's scared of being illiterate in the world's eyes. But the apostles were illiterate in the eyesight of the men, Peter and them, the fishermen. Yet they stood up with boldness to proclaim the truth, the 100% truth. No lie in it, no guile. And it was these illiterate men that the Lord established the gospel that we believe. They weren't learned in the world's way, in the world's sight. And so, why? What made them different then? Did they know all historical stuff? No. No, they did not. What they do know? Because how can you know the 100% truth and not know everything? How can you know the 100% truth and not know everything? That's pretty good question. Because in the world side is, if you don't know everything, you could be wrong about something. Yet God says you could know the 100% truth and yet not know everything. What I hope to do is convince you, brothers and sisters, that are always in these live streams and the chat sections arguing back and forth with Black Hebrew Israelites and with other Christians, teaming up with them and laughing and degrading. You know, these people who you think is dumb, those of you that go up and this is the cherries thing, all that ungodliness that takes place and all that out of order that takes place. I don't want you guys to have the mindset like many have, where they team up and they don't even believe the same things. I want to let you guys know what was going on. I told you guys this before, but I think that video got erased. When I was in these apologetic circles, all right, with Faithful and Vocab and G-Con and Surreal and Cherry and all that, we didn't even all believe the same stuff. There was arguments behind the scenes that you guys didn't know about, and some of them spill out in the forefront, but you see, they still do stuff together. People not believing that it's totally by grace that you're saved. People believing that God don't know everything. People believing that women could be bishops and pastors. All kind of stuff was going on. People promoting idols, lovers of Thor, Thanos, and all that cartoon Marvel universe, made up elder gods and all that kind of stuff. But it would team up to come against the Black Hebrew Israelites. Because, hey, we agree on the essentials. Some made up category that so-called smart men came up with. Not even Christians. It was scientists. It was heathen scientists that came up with this whole essential, non-essential stuff. You had so many schisms and separations and these creation of denominations and sects. You had so many going on, but everybody was claiming to believe the same God. And so the heathens are like, well, what is it? You know, they do things differently. They don't all do things the same. They're, everybody got their own belief system, but they all say they're part of this, they all believe in this one God. You know, they had internal wars with each other, but they all say they believe in the same God. What is it that they share in common? That must be the essentials that they must believe in. Everything else is kind of whichever way somebody want to go. And that's why this essentials of the faith list, which is made up, that's why it's always believing that Jesus is the Christ, that he's the Son of God, that he died for sins, and those that believe on him shall have eternal life. And that's it. Everything else don't really matter. We can kind of have our own, and that's what they call the non-essentials, the things not needed for salvation. and not important, not enough to break fellowship over or anything like that. So things like women not covering their heads in the assembly and being stiff-necked and don't want to observe the ordinance, no, that's not a reason to break fellowship, even though the apostle says, it's a dishonor to God and dishonor to men, which is a sin. But no, it's not a big deal. Women being pastors, no, even though the apostle said these things are out of order and they should remain silent in the churches and blah, 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 blah. It's not a big deal. It's not essential for salvation to be saved. I know many women pastors, as people were talking, I know many women pastors that believe and they preach that gospel. So, they talk like that. And so they just right up under the rug. Right under the rug. Because they don't think that disorder, which is chaos, which is evil, they don't think that's an essential to the faith. They look at chaos and disorder like it's like some easily put under the rug thing, and you could just continue to serve God in it. They don't truly know the Lord. They're trying to save face and not make too many enemies. So they let a lot of things slide. And those type of things is going on amongst the Christian apologist realm. You got some, they teaming up with folks on their channels. They supposed to be historic people. But when you talk to them, like faith-wise, they're enemies. One Seventh-day Adventists and the other one's Calvinists. And so once I realized that what was going on, because I didn't know all this when I first got over there. But when I found out about that stuff, man, I try to warn people. We had little skiffles, if you want to say, in the backdrop. But after a while, man, I had to pull back. And because I saw what the real problem was. And so that's what I've noticed in all of this. And so it doesn't help us. I know people who call themselves defenders of the faith that pervert the faith they defended. They literally pervert it. I've seen people who are defenders of the faith have panels, discussions, like, is MMA evil or something like that? And they get on there. They're supposed to be defending the faith, the purity of it. And they get on there and say, well, it's not something personally that I do, but I can't tell anybody that is sin because, the Bible doesn't explicitly say. These people don't know God. They need everything to say, thou shalt not, MMA, for them to go, thou shalt not enjoy WWE. You should not promote it. For them to go, yeah, that's evil and we shouldn't do it. They can't simply observe the deeds being done and discern this is evil. This is wickedness. They always need like a little baby. So why do they open up the Bible to teach anybody anything? Why do they hold the panel? If the only way they're going to know something's evil is they need the Bible to say, thou shalt not. They can't discern love. They can't discern charity. They don't know what wickedness look like. Because they haven't looked intently at the law of God. They don't actually know him. They don't actually know him. And that's why they openly promote these evil things. And then they get mad and call you legalist and all this other stuff when you talk about it. And these are your defenders. These are the ones y'all support. And you're mesmerized by the historical knowledge, and they got to reply for. I watched the Olympics come in. I seen on live broadcast these heathens calling on the names of the false gods by name. Calling on Apollos, standing in the middle of Zeus and Hesper's temple, lighting a stupid flame from the heat of the sun for these dumb Olympic games. I watched them do the torch. I watched them bring the torch to Tokyo. I watched them light up the conjurum and pronounce the stupid oath, and all the athletes that participate has to agree to it. And I watched them entertain folks. I didn't actually watch the Olympics like that, but I mean, like, I saw the events in which they did, so I could show you guys that it is what it is, a religious festival. And I watched a Christian apologist after Christian apologist spending the whole time the Olympics been going on talking about everything else under the sun. CRT, critical race theory. Oh, this debate coming, guys. You watching it? Yeah, what is it? Was there more than two people in the beginning? Oh, this debate. What debate? Oh, Dante Fortson's wrong. The Pew Part 2, the Pew Part 3. Oh, I'm talking about everything else under the sun. And nobody mentions about these ungodly Olympics, this idolatry that the people in the comment section is promoting. They don't want them. They don't say nothing about it. Pre-mill versus post-mill. Which one is it? While the Olympics is literally going on. Now, these are people that love to use heathen things as evangelistic opportunity. That's why they say they do Christmas. It's because it's evangelistic opportunity. That's why they do Easter and bunny rabbits, because it's an evangelistic opportunity. Ungodly Olympics comes on. WWE's on every week. MMA's on all the time. And they're promoting it. Thor movie comes out. They don't say, stay away from the pagan theaters. This is ungodly. These are heathen. These idols. God wants you to hate them. Do not go to be fans of these things, because you won't hate them. They'll become a trap to you. They won't warn y'all about that. And a lot of y'all don't even care to be warned about it. You want to do what you want. I know this class is supposed to be never be deceived by a Black Hebrew Israelite, but the only reason people be deceived by Black Hebrew Israelites because y'all don't know God. You don't know God. You heard some stories about Jesus Christ. You look at the Bible all the time. You might have done the read the Bible in a 90-day app, but you don't know God, and it's proven by your actions. Bump what you say. God is God, and knowledge by him actions are weighed. Every time you share a post, like some of these false brethren do, talking about who y'all got. Y'all got Mayweather, man, or y'all got Paul. Every time they on there, hee-hee-hawing with each other about and taunting one another. Yeah, man, hey, y'all don't want to see us in that finals, though, because, hey, my team in 6, bro. Man, y'all trash, man. Hey, what happened when y'all came in our building, when y'all came in the garden? What happened? They're talking stupid. Taunting one another. Boasting in what? Grown men playing a game. And I used to do these things, man, but it's childish. And it's evil. And I had nobody in my ear telling me this stuff was evil. And I didn't truly know God to be able to discern it. People today got what I didn't have. And I'm not saying that there was no teachers around this time teaching it. I just never heard them. I never came across them. But y'all got them in your ear. Y'all have come across them. But you don't care. You can't see how it's evil. You can't see how The Rock says, and when he struts down to the ring when he comes back, or Steve Austin, or the Edge, or you know, them little 3 black guys that dress gay-like. And they come out with unicorns and stuff like that, and little candies, and they dress in loud colors, acting goofy. You don't understand how they did that's evil. No, it's just a show. It's just a sport. It's fake. I don't see nothing. Then how you know God? Is God light or is God darkness? Is he sight or is he blind? And if you're his children, how can you be blind? It's impossible. The only reason anybody's deceived by any false doctrines is because they don't know God. They don't know him. They don't know him how they supposed to know him. They know of him. They may know some truths of him, but they don't really know him. They haven't grown in enlightened knowledge. They don't know righteousness from wickedness. That's why they can't discern when falsehood is being told to them. The apostle warned us about this time, guys. Let me get this right quick. And it's the leader's fault. It's their fault. They're the ones supposed to be hired to feed the sheep. But you know, they only feed you every 7 days. Every 7 days. The law and truths of God and how he wants you to live, you ain't going to learn that all in one Sunday and a maybe Wednesday night class. Sheep ain't fed twice a week. They're fed every day. Sheep are fed every day. The apostle said this. Look at what he said. We live in this time. And think about all the evils that go on in our present generation and how many people that profess to be Christians enjoy them. Paul said, Timothy, know this. In the last days, there will be difficult times. This difficult time started during the apostles' time. This ain't just starting. This been going on. All these sects you see around, and everybody go, which one is the right one? And you got thousands of Christian sects. Each sect was formed outside of the one. There's one sect. It don't got no name. But it's only a sect because there's other sects. If the other sects didn't exist, this wouldn't have been considered a sect. But all these sects were formed because somebody veered off from what the truth was. Each sect or faction or clique or denomination, as much as people try to shove it under the rug, is a byproduct of evil taking place. Yet, they so loyal to their falsehood sects, they have freaking holidays to celebrate them when they were formed. That's foolishness. The apostle said difficult times will come, for people will love only themselves and their money. They will be boastful, arrogant. This is where taunting comes from. This is where that boasting, I'm better than you stuff come from. They'll be boastful and proud, scoffing at God. How do man scoff at God? I mean, they ain't in his face going, ha ha, God, you. They ain't doing that. They're scoffing at the purity of his word, the commandments that he has taught. They will scoff and mock these things. They'll call it legalism to obey and things like that. People loosely use the word legalism. They don't even know what it means. And this is ginger ale for anybody that want to know. He said they will be unloving. And what is love? To keep God's commandments. I mean, they live life of lawlessness. They're unloving and they're unforgiving, quick to hold grudges, not easy and willing to forgive and make peace. They will slander others, meaning without having any clue of what's really going on or having little bits of piece of information, they're going to spread it like they got the whole thing down pat, like y'all do on Facebook. Every time a black person got shot by a cop, the first thing smoking, y'all sharing it. And everybody get upset in their emotions. But you just sit back and wait. Let all the evidence come out. Then people get looking like fools. And they don't come back and apologize for the falsehood and the emotionalism they was caught up under, how they riled up people's feelings, arguing in the comment sections. No, they just let it go. Until next time. Some of them are still hold tight to their falsehood and their emotionalism. And they'll actually act like justice was perverted if they don't get what they thought that should happen. Look how people made all excuses for that, what the brother name was. The brother that was running, that they tried to say was just a jogger. Look at all the excuses people kept making. When I was younger, I trespassed. That ain't worthy of a death sentence, though. Why Christians was saying that? Don't you know that every evil is worthy of death in God's sight? Or you take things lightly just because God allowed some sacrifices under the law so people didn't physically die? The law taught every sin deserves death, even ignorant ones. For even ignorant sins require death of a lamb. That's what God taught you. God taught us every act of sin, even your foolish thoughts, deserves death. Every time a foolish thought comes through our mind, we deserve the Lord to cast us into outer darkness. If it wasn't for his mercy. The law taught that. God told you that. Yet because he allowed sacrifices under the Old Testament, people think, well, lying, that's not worthy of a death sentence, though. Even in the law of God, when a man lied, it was a sacrifice. And what that sacrifice was to teach you? For every lie you told, death was required, blood was required. So that shows your mindset regarding sin and all that stuff and the law of God. You take the grace of God for granted. Through your ignorance or just through maliciousness? Everybody should know and operate like every act of sin deserves death. You know what that make you real humble. That make you real careful. But people that got this mindset of, that ain't worthy of a death sentence. When I was younger, I trespassed. When I was younger, I snuck out the house. Oh, you mean you was a disobedient little kid? You deserve for the Lord to send a truck and run you over and then cast you in the outer darkness. That's what you deserved. You deserve when you jumped out that window and you running through the neighborhood in the nighttime because you trying to sneak over to somebody's house. You deserve for a stray dog with rabies to come out the woods and just bite you up and you catch a disease and die. That's what you deserved. That's what you deserved. God spared you from anything like that so you can live and told you used to do it. Hopefully you don't do it now. But God has already proven in his law every act of sin deserves death. So yes, even trespassing, doing that which is evil. Yes, even looting the Target store. Even stealing the smallest of item. It could have been $5 worth. Stealing, period. Deserves for you to die. Playing GTA and taking your little character, man, to somebody's car and push the triangle button so you can open up the door and throw them out on the road and you can take the car that you liked and drive off. Yeah, that little video game. That act deserves death in God's sight. But you go, it's just a game. Because you don't really understand God. You haven't learned him yet. You haven't really learned. You're ignorant still. Why are the people so blind like that? What is going on? He said they'll be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. Meaning they can't control the members of their body. They live according to their evil urges. He said they will be cruel to one another. Degrading speech, talking down to one another, withholding that which is good from who's deserving. They'll be cruel and hate what is good. That's legalism. You trying to take away my liberty in Christ, bro. I ain't got to put my pork sandwich down, bro. Hey, if they... Like some of these sisters that want to be sexy while saved. They wear them little tight dresses and brothers dealing with the flesh. The flesh start craving after. Now they got to go into battle mode because their sister ain't being modest. And then what some of these women go, if I wear this and he feel like that's his problem. Not thinking of only thing about themselves. Gonna want to show off themselves somehow. Loud, rebellious people. Anyway. He said they will betray their friends. They'll be reckless. You know what that means? They'll be careless. They won't think before they act. They just do. They'll be puffed up with pride. Huh? And how they got that? Through their knowledge. Their knowledge puff them up. Puffed up with pride. These guys ain't real. So it doesn't matter if I go to the idol's temple, eat the meat sacrifice to them, because the meat ain't nothing. And then through their puffed up pride, they actually participate in demonic worship. And that's what everybody was doing for the Olympics. Puffed up with pride, and they love pleasure or fun or entertainment rather than God. They will act religious. To let you know, everything we just finished reading wasn't talking about the world. It was talking about those who are Christians or those in the churches or profess to believe. He said they will act religious. Well, how you act religious? Share scriptures online. I dare you to share this post if you love God. Can I get 100 shares? Jesus clothes, Jesus shades, bumper stickers on the cars. Every time you walk in their house, they got the music playing. I love the Lord. They clapping, singing loud. They go to the grocery store. They want to get out the car in the parking lot and fake shout. Hallelujah. And jumping around and stuff. These act religious folks. They act religious. Oh, they go to church? Yeah. They go to Bible class? Yeah. They go to small group? Yeah, all the time. They'll act religious. They'll act pious. But they will reject the power that could actually make them godly. Now, what does it mean to be godly, though? Oh, that means holy. Make them holy. What's holy? Set apart. What does that mean? Live separate than the world. How the world lives? According to the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. But how they live? They don't live according to the lust of the eyes, pride of life, and the lust of the flesh. They live opposite of that. Well, how do they do that? Yeah, they obey the commandments of God and the testimony of Christ. But the apostle told Timothy, he said, they act religious, but they reject the power that make them godly in how they live. Stay away from people like that. He said, stay away from religious, going to church, Bible class, small group folks that live evil lives. Stay away from people like that. They call themselves Christians. They'll continue to act religious. They'll continue to go to church. They'll continue to call themselves Christians. But you stay away from people like that. Avoid them. But then we're brothers. We're brothers in the faith. That's not them being unloving, that's not a reason to break fellowship. Them being unforgiving and won't forgive and hold grudges, that ain't a reason to break fellowship. That's a non-essential. Them not having self-control, nobody's perfect. These are people that continue to live this. This is the character. You ain't talking about people who walk upright and then fell into a transgression. We're talking about people who continue this course of life. You ain't falling into transgression when you openly promoting evil online all the time, every time it comes around. That's not a falling into transgression. That's you openly live an evil life. This your character. Go on your page, it's full of MMA. It's full of Marvel Universe. That's not falling into transgression. That's you living an evil life. You love idols. You love lies. Stay away from people like that, or they'll corrupt you. And it always starts with the leaders, because the people will follow that. Just as the apostle says, people didn't want to endure sound doctrine, so they surround themselves with teachers telling them what they want to hear. So it starts with the teachers, and then the people follow them. This is what we live at. And it's because of these reasons people are deceived by Black Hebrew Israelites, Nation of Islam, British Israelism, Egyptology, etc. It's because of these reasons. And ain't because they don't think Jesus is the Christ, or they don't say with their mouth that he's the Son of God or something like that. The demons rarely say those things. Matter of fact, the Bible records the demons professing those very things. Jesus, the Son of God. Have you come to torment us before the time? Etc., etc. But what can't they do? The demons, they can profess the truths that you profess, but what they can't do that those that believe on Christ can do. They can't live godly. They can't live holy, but the children of God can. So to simply know or profess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and things like that, that makes you no different than a demon to just profess the knowledge of these things. The proof is that shows that you believe it truly is that those that believe that message have been set free from every kind of sin. And Christ has broke the power of sin. And therefore, the proof that Christ has broken the power of sin of a person is how they live. But if a person professes faith in Christ and they act like this is their conduct, this is how they live, this is what they take pleasure in, then no matter what they say, they're lying. Stay away from people like that. The only people deceived is because they live evil lives. They don't know the Lord. If you know the Lord, he will keep you safe. That's what the Psalm says. That's what Proverbs says. Wisdom will keep you safe. It will keep you from the perverse path and from those whose words are perverse. It will save you from the adulterous women, etc., etc. But if people are getting beguiled and they're not being protected and they are going away to false teachers, etc., it's because they don't really know him. They're ignorant. So they have to become ignorant, or they're going to be destroyed. God has shown his power since the beginning, and he continues to show it now. From what's going on in Afghanistan right now, the Lord is just showing how he stirs up the hearts of the kings and make them do whatever he wants. The Lord stirred up their hearts to pull out the military and immediately sent in the Taliban, and they take it over. And then trying to send it back, and now it's going to be some conflict and all this jazz. At the same time, while God's got this plague of pestilence going around the world with this COVID stuff. And who knows what he's going to unleash next. There's already a food shortage. They're only letting you get, at least here, they're only letting you get 2 packs of chicken, limit, because of shortage, and the pluckers are raising their prices. The heathens are paranoid. They're running around promoting, thinking a vaccine is going to save the world and make everything go back to normal. Just get the vaccine so we can go back to normal. That's what the commercial said with the little black doctor man. Just take the vaccine so we can go back to normal. Yeah, okay. Tell the people who got the vaccine, are you back to normal? Or y'all still getting it? The solution is very simple, brothers and sisters. It's not hard at all. You don't have to know the ins and outs of these false movements. You don't need to know all history. You don't need to have a historical rebuttal. You don't need to go buy any book. You don't need to go to the library. You don't need to get sources or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, what is it that, okay, you get all of this. What do you want it for? To save somebody's soul? What do you want it for? To teach them righteousness? Or you just want to get it so you can be right and show they're wrong? What's the purpose? What's the purpose? And even if you got the truth, and not guarantee you even going to know how to use the thing to convince, let alone convince the person. You might get on and start fumbling around or something like that, talking crazy, and make things worse. So what's the purpose? What's the point? What's the point? When the apostles went out and preached the gospel of Christ, every person that got convinced and came to Christ, it was because the apostles went out there and said, for example, arguing with the heathens, going, what's your source of how you know your God is true? What's the sources that you have? Can you present those? Let me debate you. Well, actually, your source is not a credible source. It's Wikipedia. My source is a first century source. And this is my source says. Ooh, he has a first century source. Ooh. I didn't know there was a law of truth that, hey, if it's the first document ever written, therefore it's the truth. I didn't know that's how it worked. And that's how them Egyptology folks get over on some people about the Bible. Laws of Mayat was written first, and the Bible stole from it. Oh, brother. So, none of that's required. You're wasting your time. Y'all wasting your time, man. You're truly wasting your time. That's the message I have for today. And that's what my spirit keeps saying. Y'all wasting y'all time. All the time you wasting in all these extra books is that much more time you wasting in meditation on God's law that you may live holy, so that you may not be deceived by the evil one. You got people like Sister Cherry, who a lot of people commend because, hey, she knows history, and look she cutting the Black Hebrew Israelites. You don't want to mess with the mama. And then she gets up there and she acts totally ungodly, unwomanlike, disrespecting man that is her head, dishonoring the gospel, causing to be evil spoken of, and nobody says anything because, hey, she's going against the Black Hebrew Israelites. And that's what matters. Y'all wasting y'all time. Having the same debates over and over again. How many discussions going to have about the curses? And who it came upon? What people it came upon? Like, how long you going to keep on that? Y'all wasting y'all time, bro. What do you really care about in this life? Do you care about your relationship with the Father, learning of him that you may emulate him in all that you do, and focusing your mind and attention on that? Or chasing these guys around? Chasing their doctrine around? Watching people say they defending the faith. They don't never talk to y'all about holiness and how to live. Everything they talk about is, this person is wrong. This person is wrong. I'm going to cut him. I'm going to destroy him. He's wrong. He's wrong. He's wrong. He's wrong. And I got the source. That's all they waste y'all time with, man. He's wrong, part 1. He's wrong, part 2. He's wrong, part 5. Always in the midst of quarrels. You called me a name, then you called me a name. I'll get the timestamp. I got the timestamp, man. Y'all wasting y'all time. The Lord's going to come and judge every last one of us. And he's going to judge you for your own sins, not the sins of others. If you don't fear him and live godly, for every person that claims to have been blood saved or saved by the blood of the Lamb, who do not walk careful and keep the Lord's commandments, your body will be laid waste in the wilderness. And that is why the Lord had it written, for your learning, what he did to Israel when he saved them by grace out of Egypt. That is a warning from God. Stop wasting your time. Consume yourself with his commandments, live upright, depart from the world. No reason to worry about the Black Hebrew Israelites when you just bought a ticket to go watch two grown men beat each other to a pulp for your entertainment. No reason to worry about arguing with somebody about who the curses came upon when you're a wife that's unsubmissive to your husband in all things. No reason for you to worry about who the curses came upon. It came upon. No reason for you to even worry about that. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time about who the curses came upon. When after you've closed all your theology books, you turn on the PS5 and play GTA and throwing people out of their cars and robbing banks. Going to that stupid club because they got a bunch of money in the back. I used to play these games. I know what's in it. The scripture says, God saved us and called us to live a holy life. You should consume yourself with that. Stay away from perverted people like this. People that come to you about nationality, you don't even know nothing else. They come to you about that stuff, just turn your ears off and walk away. Stay away from people like that. You see a rebellious, loudmouth, out-of-order woman online trying to teach the words of God? One ear out the other. Turn the channel. Like, why don't you sit and listen? She out of order. She out of order about that. How much other stuff she out of order with? And if you was to correct her, will she listen? Will she stop? No, she won't. Because she's convinced. Corrupted. Stay away from people like that. You got a man supposed to be defending the faith who's an apologist, and his whole room decorated with lies. Stupid little Marvel Universe characters and stuff, and idols. Stay away from people like that, irregardless of what he claimed to know. Stay away from people like that. God called you, he saved you, and called you to live a holy life. Because they'll become traps to you. They'll live open evil lives before your eyes, but you got so much respect for them, you won't correct them. You won't say nothing. You won't say nothing. When I opened my mouth about MMA and boxing and all that kind of stuff, I got crucified. I got crucified by the apologetic community. People saying I was jumping off the cliff. All this kind of stuff was going on. But guess what? I got some secret calls. Some people ask me, man, what you mean what you saying? And I explain the same thing I already said openly. So I see that. I agree with you, Brother Jay. You'll never know it because they'll never tell you openly. They'll never say it openly. Or they end up like me. When I used to come online and I used to be talking about the other stuff, 30, 40 people coming in the room, 50, 60, depending on what day. Sometimes, one time, 200 and something came in there one time just to hit the down button and left. Start talking about holiness, boy. 8, 9. And those 9 or 10 people are probably just the brothers and sisters in the community that I shepherd. Nobody care about holiness. Y'all just wanted to hear arguments and hear people get destroyed, and then you can get on. You're probably listening to your favorite apologists while you're playing GTA. Matter of fact, some of these apologists stream themselves playing the games. But y'all have accepted social patterns. That's why y'all ain't being persecuted. That's why you ain't really being persecuted. You're not really being hated. Not really being hated. America claimed to be a Christian nation. Look at what it allows. And you got some Christians that's so loyal to it and call it a Christian nation. This ain't no Christian nation, man. This is a demonic nation. Look at what they allow here. If you don't like it, leave. I have to leave the whole earth. Ain't no land a godly land. That's why it's all going to be burned up. No matter where you send me at, it's just a piece of dirt. A piece of dirt on this earth. None of it's my homeland anyway. Whether I stayed in America, whether I went to Egypt, whether I went to Israel, whether I went to China. It don't even matter. It's a piece of dirt on this earth that God made. It was named after some person that conquered it. And whoop-de-doo. None of it's my homeland. None of it's to be cherished. And definitely none of it's to be called a Christian country. No. That's your problem. They love talkers. Anybody who just say, Jesus the Christ, you think it's automatic Christian. No. Look at what they allow. This ain't no Christian nation. I'm just a human, and y'all could clearly see my frustrations with all the stuff going on. Imagine the holy God. Imagine the holy God. You can't even fathom the anger he has. You see him displaying it, but this ain't even in his full wrath. You think COVID ain't in his full wrath. Man. Full wrath is God bring down his plague and you don't survive. And then not only you don't survive, because that death, that is the fullness of God's wrath, ain't a death where you just cease to exist or you die and that's it. It's one that keeps going on and on for eternity and you're conscious of it. It's a suffering that never ends. Whatever you see on earth is nothing. It's nothing, man. If lightning make you jump back and run in your house, lightning is God's wrath contained. Imagine a lake of fire, God's wrath uncontained, meaning no mercy involved. We can't even imagine that. We've only known God's mercies. And even when he's shown no mercy by punishing somebody, the punishment was never according to what their sin deserved. So we don't actually know the wrath of God yet with no mercy attached to it. It's always God's wrath in some kind of measurement. But the lake of fire is not that. We got no idea what's coming for the evildoers. I don't want to find out. I hope y'all don't want to find out. I know you will say you don't want to find out. Well, if you don't want to find out and you actually mean what you said, then you'll focus yourself on living upright and holy, abstaining from those things that are evil. And it will bring down on you the dislike of family members. It will bring down the dislike of you from other Christians because your holy life is going to be an open rebuke to them without you saying anything. You're separating from people that love evil. They're going to hate you for that. When you call out MMA and boxing and the Olympics and, the competitive arenas and all that kind of stuff, when you call those things out for what they are, you. Boy. And if enough of you actually did what God said to do, the economy around us will feel it. And at that point, you'll start to be treated like the Christians was during the Romans' time, when that economy felt it. Because the Christians weren't participating in these things. But right now, they love y'all. America loves Christians. This heathen nation loves Christians. That's why they give y'all them TV shows. That's why they got gospel artists performing with ungodly artists on the war shows. They give y'all specials, Sunday's best, everything. They love y'all. Y'all do what God hates. And so they put you on TV so you can continue to make God angry. And produce more hypocrites. People who cry because the song sounds good and the music is in the minor key. And so it provokes their crying senses. And so they think that was an experience from God. I love you. Lift your hands up in the building today. And after they finish that, guess what they do? Hey, don't talk to her. She did this to me last week. Man, Susie, you always can't forgive, holding grudges, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, greedy, scoffing at God, calls all things holy legalism, hating what's good, loving what's evil, betraying friends, puffed up with pride, can't tell them nothing, disobedient to their husbands, abusing their wives, men with men, women with women, men with two women. People that hate God. Stay away from people like that, brothers and sisters. And if you live upright, you'll never be deceived by Black Hebrew Israelites, because you'll know the truth, and the truth will abide in you by his spirit. And that truth is Christ, and his spirit will cause you to walk upright, and you will have eyes to see, and wisdom will be in your heart, because you fear God and treasure his commandments. And that wisdom will guard you from the path of the evil path, meaning you'll be able to discern good from evil, even if it's not a thou shalt not scrape on the gloves on your hand and pound a man in his face and knock him out and make his brain hit his side of his skull so hard you knock him unconscious. Thou shalt not do that, so you can know it's evil. No, you'll see what's being done. Man, wait a minute. This man's made in the image of God. I'm supposed to care about his conscience. That's literally the doctrine of Christ. Care about other people's consciences. How can I care about his conscience when I'm knocking him unconscious? And why am I knocking him unconscious? Because I want to win? I want to get the glory? And then what's going to happen? Well, I might get money. I might get moved up in ranks. I might get a bigger fight. Oh, it's me. It's selfishness. This is evil. I shouldn't participate in this at all. Stay away from strife. Stay away from competition. Stay away from rivalry. Those that support these things and promote them and say they're good and that's legalism to think otherwise. A brother asked me about this book. I referenced it yesterday. My wife bought this because I haven't read it all. She only got this because I keep reading that one page to you guys. And I'm going to end today by reading that same page. Now, it's got other historical stuff that's happened, all the schisms and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, all that happened. That's historical stuff. It's not required to know to have life. But this is required to know. This is essential to the faith. This is how you should live amongst the heathen society. It says social problems also made their contribution to the cause of the Roman persecution of the church. The Christians who had great appeal for the lower classes and slaves were hated by the influential aristocratic leaders of society. These leaders looked down on them with contempt, but were fearful of their influence on the lower class. Christians upheld the equality of all people. Paganism insisted on the aristocratic structure for society in which the privileged few, that's this 1%, the rich folks, the ones that can build coliseums, the ones that got the boxes way up in the arenas where they sit at and watch all the people entertain them and make them money, where the privileged few were served by their lower class and slaves, which is what majority of athletes are. Rarely, seldom do you have athletes who was born rich. All right, their father one of their ancestors that was in the league already, like NBA or whatever cases, like the Currys and stuff like that. Somewhere down the line, one of their family members was poor and came from nothing. Lower class, probably broken home. Devoted themselves to athletics, excelled at it, got into the NBA, got rich, had a son. Son grew up playing basketball. His son got drafted. That's how they get into this, all right? But majority of athletes all come from the hood. They didn't have nothing. They were poor, broken homes, all that kind of stuff. Just like the Roman society with the gladiators and all that. It was the poor, lower class folks that entertained the few privileged. and made them more money. Paganism insisted on an aristocratic structure in society in which the privileged few were served by the lower class and slaves. Christians, though, separated themselves from pagan gatherings at temples. So the Olympics, because that gathering started temples. The Christians weren't there. So when the Olympics would go on during the time of apostles, though the Christians had knowledge of what was going on there, because some of them used to be gladiators and lived in the land, so they knew what was going on, but they weren't there. They weren't participants, right? They weren't supporters. They separated themselves from gathering at temples, where they would slay oxen to the false gods, where they would eat the meat to the false gods, where they would hold the festivals in honor of false gods. The Christians weren't there. The theaters, like the Roman Colosseum pictures that we always see, like this. These places, these places like that. Does that look kind of familiar? That look like a football arena, man. It look like a stadium, because it is. All right. So when the sports and stuff was going on in these theaters, when the stage plays were going on by the heathens and them in their costume or masks, all right, where you get the word hypocrite from, when those events were going on, Christians weren't there. They weren't there. Because it was paganism. It was heathen. It was heathen activity going on. It was evil. That's why all the films in Hollywood and even on Pure Flix, all of them are corrupted. They all require somebody to do what God hates. None of them are pure where all good happens and the things God desires. No, they either want to retell a story that happened in history where there was evil going on, lying going on, and so they got to pay actors to act these parts out. Or they're making up a made-up story, all right? But in order to have a plot, they got to have somebody evil, somebody do something evil or something like that so that the plot can build. So every film is corrupt. None of them good. They're all corrupt. They all hire people to do what God hates. All right? This is where you get the word hypocrite from, or actor, and that's why the Christians weren't at the theaters. All right? They weren't like Tyler Perry and them other false Christians on stage prancing around while a man is dressed in a dress and them acting out them parts and stuff like that. So they weren't at the theaters and places of recreation. Your gymnasiums, the Colosseums, where they would fight lions and bears, and the pancration was going on, and the chariot races were going on, and the discus was going on. The Christians weren't there. They separated themselves from it. This nonconformity to accepted social patterns brought down on them the dislike that the nonconformist always faces in any period of history. The purity of their lives, because that's what this is all about, because God called us, God saved us and called us to live holy lives. The holy life the apostles and them lived during the time of the Roman society was a silent rebuke to the scandalous lives that people of the upper class were leading. You wouldn't have the NBA without the upper class, without the rich. Because you poor people can't build stadiums. Y'all can't put on those events. And y'all can't sustain them. You can't make a Hollywood. And you can't sustain it being poor and lower class. The upper class must lead these things. They must finance it. They have the funds. So they build the arenas. And you simply make them more money by going there. They lead it and you follow. And their money hires people to entertain them. You ever notice owners don't get in the ring and box? They're never in a fight. They hire other people to do it and make the money. They ain't on the football field taunting. Get over here, cuz. They hire other people to do it. While they sit in their fancy dancy boxes or at home somewhere or at some meeting making some more money with their other vengeance adventures. While you lower class poor folks will do anything to make money, even do what God hates. The upper class, the leading class. Yet the athletes that's in the leagues, they're always complaining. It's like slavery. It's like slavery. We don't want the word, we want y'all to change the word from owner because it's got too many connotations with slavery. So concerned about language and not concerned at all with your actions. Because, hey, what's wrong with that? The Christian nonconformity to the existing social patterns led the pagans to believe that they were a danger to society and characterized them as haters of mankind who might incite the masses to revolt. This is the type of pattern of life that we are to follow because the generations didn't get worse. Didn't get better with time and technology. They got worse with time and technology. Every evil that was going on in Rome has been advanced, sped up, and fed to you 24/7. Back in the day, you had to get up and go to these places. Today, you can sit on your couch, be fat, eat chips, and be at these places. Who's doing the fantasy league? Yeah, all right. Man, shoot, man, he ain't performing for me, man. I need to drop him, cuz. Man, he trash. Gambling, betting, who you got? I'm trying to make some money off this fight. The upper class lead these things. You poor people don't lead it. You provide the services, and in exchange, they give you, they take care of your life. They pay for your houses, your cars. I'm talking about those that are athletes, the ones that actually participate. While the rest of you work for a living and then set aside your money to go and waste it at these evil events. Because you just, like Timothy, like Paul told Timothy, they love pleasure, entertainment. That's what pleasure is. Entertainment literally means pleasure. Pleasure rather than God, rather than holiness, rather than righteousness. They love to have fun, to be entertained, to have a good time, rather than being holy. That's the time we live in, guys. But if you focus your mind on living holy and learning of Christ and keeping his commandments, which is the truth, 100% of it, there's no lie in it, then you're going to be fine. You don't need to know the ins and outs. You don't need to be a scholar. You don't need to go to school. You don't need to learn Hebrew or Greek. You don't need to do any of the stuff that people make it seem like they need to know. Look at the individuals who talk about that all the time. Look at them. They sound smart, but look at their lives. Look how they live. Look at the people they associate with. Look at the ordinance they lay aside. Look how they don't fear God. Look at the things they promote. Look at the things they think is okay. I can go on and on, guys. There's a lot to talk about, but I'm not gonna keep it much longer today. The point is that if people knew God, if they knew Christ, truly, not just know of him, but know him and keep his commandments, walk by faith, desire righteousness above all pleasures of the earth. And if you desire righteousness over every pleasure of the earth, then you have no problem turning down pleasures of the earth to live upright. Then you won't be deceived by any falsehood, whether it be another false Christian preacher or somebody outside of the church. And so Lord's will for those that's part of the community that the Lord has allowed me to shepherd over, and any other Christ sheep that comes around, that I see in my vicinity keep coming around, then I assume responsibility and guide them until the Lord gives them a shepherd wherever they're at, or move them here. But either way, Lord's will, just as is written in the law regarding the watchmen, they were to watch for the safety of all the people. And a shepherd who has sheep is not only concerned for his own sheep, for the law said, if you see your neighbor's sheep stuck in a hole or his oxen stuck in a hole, you're obligated to help him and keep it safe until he's returned back to his owner. So for any sheep of Christ, that's, in my eyesight, in my line of sight, and I see them and they're without their shepherd, then, I try my might at least, because some people just don't want to be cared for. But I try to gather them in and take care of them until they return to their shepherd, or the Lord gives them a shepherd. Because maybe they was wandering off because their shepherd got them scattered since he was blind. But either way, we keep, for those that are teachers and guides, you're to keep your eyes out for all of Christ's sheep. You're not only to be concerned with the immediate sheep that Christ has given you, but you also keep your eyes out for your neighbor's sheep. Just in case they get stuck or injured or something like that, you can help them and keep them safe and bandage them up and then return them back to their owner. Because at the end of the day, we're required to equip the people to live holy lives and teach what that holy life is and be examples for them. And it will be anti-social. It'll be anti-social. It'll be anti the way of life here in America and how it is and how people think you can serve Christ. It's anti that. It just is what it is. But if you desire holiness and righteousness, you won't care. You won't care, guys. I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to rest my body here. And Lord's will, see you guys Sunday, Lord's will afternoon at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on the Ministry Channel. And many of y'all wasting y'all time. But I hope you're here and accept the words of God and hear what His Spirit is saying.